benvinguts. Bueno, em sembla que ja estem més o menys tots. En primer lloc, volia agrair-vos a vosaltres l'assistència en aquest primer acte, el primer Startup Grind que es fa aquí a Andorra. I bé, per nosaltres és un orgull poder crear el que diem un chapter, el que podem dir que Andorra sigui un país i Andorra la Vella sigui una ciutat on arrencarem aquest projecte molt important, formant part de la xarxa d'emprenedors més gran del món. Bé, com us deia, Startup Grind és la comunitat d'emprenedors més gran del món. És una comunitat d'emprenedors que va néixer a Silicon Valley, com sabeu, una mica al lloc del món on han nascut les iniciatives tecnològiques més importants. I arrel que, bé, quan van començar a muntar companyies que no cal que us digui que tots coneixeu, van començar a compartir tota la gent experiències i els problemes que tenien els emprenedors. Van començar a muntar un grup, primer ho van fer a Silicon Valley, a San Francisco, després això es va anar extenent a altres regions dels Estats Units i al final, ara mateix, són 365 ciutats arreu del món i 125 països on està tota aquesta xarxa d'emprenedoria que es diu Startup Grind. També dius que Startup Grind té uns valors molt clars. Aquests valors són els que intentem transmetre a tothom, que semblen que siguin molt obvis però no sempre es compleixen, que són els valors de make friends, no contacts. Ja sabem aquí a Europa que moltes vegades la gent és molt ràpida a l'hora de donar targetes, però el que es tracta una mica és d'intentar compartir coneixement i inspirar el resto de gent. Després, ajudar els altres abans que ajudar-te tu mateix i, per últim, donar abans que rebre. Diguéssim que quan vaig estar amb el meu company, l'Àlex Rodríguez Bacardit, ara a San Francisco, la veritat és que si no ho vius en primera persona, a vegades no entens molt bé el que és això. Nosaltres el que tractem, el que volem, és que Andorra es converteixi en una de les localitats del món on, malgrat ser un país petit i malgrat no ser encara massa conegut arreu del món, com a país sí, però a nivell d'ecosistema emprenedoria tenim molt per fer, que humilment Startup Grind pugui contribuir a crear d'Andorra un ecosistema de noves empreses tecnològiques i això esperem que passi. Bé, què és el que farem exactament? També dius que faig la presentació en català, però tota l'entrevista que farà el nostre director regional serà en anglès, es gravarà absolutament tota l'entrevista, això serà emès a tot el món mitjançant la xarxa Startup Grind, YouTube i tots els mitjans tecnològics que hi ha, i es tracta d'anar fent això, entrevistes one-to-one de gent que puguin inspirar. Aquesta primera entrevista que farem serà una mica la presentació d'Andorra arreu del món i explicarem l'acord que s'ha arribat amb MIT per també tractar que Andorra sigui un exemple a l'hora d'intentar construir un Smart City. I bé, no m'allargaré massa més perquè els verdaders protagonistes és el senyor Gilbert Saboya, el ministre, i bé, només dius que molt contents de començar aquí i que en el futur, en breus setmanes, se sabran els propers convidats, que esperem que siguin gent de fora d'Andorra, de fora també d'Europa, que podran explicar les seves experiències. I ara dono pas tant al senyor ministre Gilbert Saboya... Perdó, em deixava el més important. Tenim que agrair moltíssim també el suport que ens han donat els nostres patrocinadors, com no, Actua, Govern d'Andorra, que permet que puguem arrencar aquest projecte aquí. També Baibank, que des del primer moment que els vam explicar el projecte ens va apoyar i ens va recolzar, i el NIU Andorra Telecom, que com sempre està amb aquests temes d'emprenedoria i d'intentar muntar incubadores i acceleradores aquí al país, demostren que és una molt bona plaça per poder fer coses. I ara sí que dono pas al codirector de Startup Grind Andorra, que és l'Àlex Rodríguez Bacardit, i al ministre, el senyor Gilbert Saboya. Moltes gràcies.
Hello, everyone. Is this on? Can you hear me? It's perfectly clear. I would like to ask yourself to give yourselves a very big round of applause for being here for the very first Startup Grind ever in Andorra. So please give it up to you. And, well, now comes the hard part of the event, speaking in English. For this very first event, we're very honored to have the minister, Mr. Gilbert Saboya. Thank you very much for being here. Welcome to Startup Grind. And I would like to start talking a little bit about Andorra because I'm going to give you the very first question. It's going to be the hard one. When we think of Andorra, when everyone thinks of Andorra, we usually don't think about innovation, technology. What is your plan to change that?
Yeah. Well, first of all, thanks very much for the invitation. It's a pleasure and an honor for me to start this series of Startup Grind events here in Andorra. And I'm very pleased to have some applauses. It doesn't happen to me many often when you're a politician, so thank you very much.
They were for me.
Well, okay, yeah, no. Now I understand it. So I hope that we had some applause at the end. Well, in fact, that's quite a bit of a challenge that we had when we started. Back when we came into office in 2011, 2012, the idea of linking us to innovation was much more the idea in a broader strategy that was based on the idea that we have to build an Andorra more eager to compete in the future. We live in a globalized world. We are a very small country that has some assets that we have to leverage, but also it gives you a limited strength in your initiative. So we thought that Andorra had its chances not by living in a closed environment, but open into the world. So we started a bunch of reforms which were very deep and wide, opening FDI. That's very important because when we talk about innovation here is because we have to attract talent. So the opening of foreign direct investments, laws and regulations was very important at the time. We also were thinking about building a whole comprehensive tax system that would make us reliable in terms of balancing the budget, which we have achieved right now since the last 2 years. And at the same time, building a tax system that will make us attractive because we have a good environment for entrepreneurs in terms of launching their projects here. But at the same time, we have been able to sign double tax agreements with our major countries here in Europe. So we have now more basis to produce goods and services from Andorra to the world. And in particular, also, we launched the negotiations with the EU in terms of having an association agreement, similar to what Norway, Liechtenstein, and Iceland do have, in order to enable people who come to Andorra to install their businesses to be able to export goods and services to Europe freely. So that was the whole strategy. And in this whole strategy, when you're so small, we have big assets in terms of safeness. We are a very safe country. We have also a very important touristic sector and financial sector. Those are two sectors that are very linked to innovation when you want to be competitive. And so we started thinking, how can we build a reputation of innovation leveraging those two existing sectors? You know, when you're so small, you cannot be number one in many things. But we are number one worldwide in terms of number of tourists over inhabitants. We receive more than 8 million tourists a year, and we are less than 18,000 inhabitants. Mm-hmm. So we have the highest ratio in the worldwide. We have a very good visit card in skiing. We have one of our resorts in the top 15 worldwide. So there we have a very powerful card. And we thought that building an ecosystem based on taking advantage of big data, dedicated and applied to tourism, could be a good strategy in the long run. So when we faced that idea, everything was to be built on scratch. But we have the chance...
When did that start? Like
it started in 2014.
Transition from analogical to digital?
In the 2011 to 2014, we built the first cluster here, an ICTs cluster, so based on innovation. And then we started thinking about building this big data project based on tourism. So we approached the MIT Media Lab in Boston. We approached it through a US-based firm that helped us in designing a strategic plan at the time. And we told the guys in Boston, and specifically Ken Larson, which is leading the city sciences at the Media Lab, that we intended to be kind of a living lab. Mm-hmm. We think that we have the correct and a good environment for it. It's a small territory. You can align easily public sector and the private sector. Proximity of governance is immediate. So maybe we cannot invent things. Innovation in Andorra is not meant to work on inventing, but in implementing and integrating. We have an environment in which it's easier to implement initiatives, and it's easier probably to integrate them. So we had the chance to start a foundation, which is called Actuatech. Yep. We linked two major companies in our country, the Andorra Telecom Company and the Energy Company. They provided us with a bunch of very interesting data based on the telecom company and the energy company. And based on this data, we told the MIT Media Lab that we would like to work with them. Because obviously the MIT Media Lab opened us a window of opportunities, of visibility, access to talent, and obviously of credibility. That's very important for us. It's a little bit what we're doing with Startup Grind. It gives us visibility, it gives us opportunity to connect to a very important network. So we use the MIT Media Lab a little bit as our mentor in terms of building up this ecosystem.
I'm pretty sure that the MIT Lab receives a lot of requests for collaboration and partnerships over the years, and you mentioned in other interviews that you were not the only ones. There were a bunch of cities that were eager to start participating in this, and I wanted to ask specifically, why did you guys get this collaboration? In terms of why Andorra and not Singapore? What other cities were in the program, and what were your strategic winning points?
Yeah, well, in fact, the MIT Media Lab has now a network of smart city projects based on different focus lines. We work with Hamburg, Helsinki, Taipei, Shanghai, Boston, and they're now expanding towards South America and Middle East. So they are building a network to connect cities where we try to implement innovation in various ways, which is very interesting for us also. We had the first City Sciences Summit last year here in Andorra. The second one is taking place this week in Shanghai. We have a delegation there. And what was interesting was the idea of the Living Lab. You know, the MIT Media Lab was very much the inventor of the concept of living lab and open innovation. And this proximity of the government when you're so small, the ability to connect with the private sector at the same time, that was very important, because when you talk about big data, sometimes it's more than a technological problem. It's how you align stakeholders. And we think that in this perspective, the fact of being a small country enabled us. And the fact of being a country.
That's where I wanted to go to.
This is a different approach than a city.
Definitely. I was going to ask, because I was taking a look at the list of the cities, and it dawned on me that all of them were just cities, and you guys are a country. So are you planning to bet on the fact that you want to be a smart country? Is this something that you're focused on, or this is just pure marketing? On what was your approach? Yeah. Did you think that was a winning point in the decision?
Yeah, I don't really like the expressions of smart city and smart country, because
I think smart city is quite selfish.
Yeah,
because you don't think of the rural areas, right? It's like, great, we're a smart city, Barcelona is a smart city. Great, how about the rest of the country, right?
The concept of the country is powerful.
Perfect.
And in fact, we lived kind of a similar experience with Google a few years ago also. Google has a platform which is Google Business View, where you can film all your retail shops and hotels and restaurants 360 degrees, and we achieved to put the whole country on Google. And that's a very powerful message. Google has a whole country, retail and hotel and restaurants sectors on the platform. So this is an idea of living lab. And on the other way around, for us, it's very powerful to be known as a country where we have the whole leisure system or sector present on a very important platform like Google is. Okay, so this is one strong idea. The fact of being a small country enable us to give a different label probably to the initiatives.
One of the things that I was really not certain about is, you obviously have gotten this deal with the MIT Lab, and you mentioned this deal with Google. Are you guys proactively looking to meet these companies and partner with them, or are they who come to you? Do they come to Andorra?
Well, you know, when we started, we had to look for them.
Okay.
And that was why we went to Boston. But it's true that once you start leveraging a few agreements of this kind, well, then that positions you. Yeah. And for example, being in the network of the cities with the Media Lab make opportunities arise with other cities that are in this network. So for us, it's very important that people in Andorra understand that we live in a very open world. You know, that's not quite popular maybe today. Mm-hmm. Some countries try to close themselves again. But when you're so small as we are, our opportunity is to grow globally. And that's the perspective that we are really looking forward. You know, when you want to compete, competing today is very hard. And Michael Porter said that if you want to compete, it's not by being the best, but by being unique. Mm-hmm. And when we are so small, trying to build a reputation on innovation is more possible because you have a better alignment to stakeholders. We can be closer between the public and the private sector. Things can happen easily in Andorra, and it takes less time to try things. You can fail, but you need less time to know it, and that is very important in innovation.
Definitely, one of the things I wanted to circle back to is when you mentioned that you're opening up, like Andorra has been opening up as a country, you guys are approaching negotiations with the neighboring countries, with Europe itself, and I wanted to know whether this is part of a strategy to position yourselves to differentiate between other local regions, small regions like perhaps like Malta, Gibraltar, who have been very fast at regulation locally for gambling, for cryptos, for ICOs, whatever. Do you think this is your ability to change rapidly? Is this something that you want to focus on specifically?
Yeah, competing by being unique doesn't mean that you can have a unique regulation. Yeah. But it may mean that you have a regulation which is adapted quicker. Mm-hmm. And that you can take advantage before the others. So it's the spirit of the association agreement negotiations that we're handling with the EU is obviously that we are going to live under the EU directives sphere. Mm-hmm. But well, you have seen countries like Luxembourg, which are very good examples.
Exactly.
They are much wider and bigger than ourselves, but it's a good example of how a small country can take advantage of being Estonia. Baltics, yeah. Can be more active or proactive in the adaptation. You know, Andorra is a story of adapting itself. When you're so small and you're able to live 700 years of history without wars in the middle of Europe, which has lived dramatic conflicts, it's because you have been able to reinvent yourself. And now it's because of innovation that we are going to be able to compete. Tourism is 50% of our GDP. We have to understand better the patterns of behavior of our visitors. This what the project of the big data and tourism is all about. We have to be able to understand what they do, to modelize, to predict, and probably to prescript. Some people say that there are going to be two kinds of people, the ones that are prescribed and the ones that's prescribed, no? And so we have to understand the behaviors of pattern because everything is about the user experience in all the markets in general. But in tourism, it's more the same. So if we want to enhance the user experience, the people who come here, if they can enjoy, we have to understand what they like. We have to be able to organize our urban planning policies according to what they should like, and this is by the development of the big data that we can probably understand how they move, how they spend their money, how they invest their times, and if we are able to build an ecosystem that enable us to understand their patterns of behavior, I think that we have a very good chance, first, to increase the competitiveness of our touristic sector, but second, to diversify our economy. Because I think that there are many firms that would like to test business models around the retail sector, the hotels, restoration sectors, and they can find here in Andorra a very good place. We have 8 million visitors in a very controlled environment with one single carrier like Andorra Telecom. This is very powerful in terms of infrastructure.
Speaking of prescriptors and evangelists, which is a really interesting thing now that we're talking about how to market this country and this environment, right? You seem to have a lot of, not only celebrities, but also expats. A lot of expats that just come here and retire because precisely of not only of the unique experience and because also of the wellness and the quality of life here in Andorra. Do you think that by empowering these specific sectors, you're also helping to market the country? Do you find that these expats bring other expats in turn, and this helps not only business but also the economic growth of the country?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is only possible because we open ourselves to this possibility. We have a bunch of assets which are very characteristic in our case. We are ranking number 4 in terms of healthcare system by The Lancet, which is a very well-known English media. We are ranking number 8 by the World Bank in terms of institutional stability and absence of violence. We haven't had any homicide in the last 5 years, so we are a very safe country to live in. We have a very good educational system which is based on a plurilingual approach. You can choose from Andorran system, which includes several languages. You can choose a public French system, the public Spanish system, and also some private schools now more based in English teaching. So the quality of life that you can find here is quite unique in these terms. And you are very close to Barcelona or Toulouse, which are very powerful in terms of entrepreneurship and initiatives of all kinds, even culturally, etc. So I think that we have a very unique environment. And that's why we've been able to attract this kind of residents, a lot of sports, women and men that have come here because of altitude. They can train here. Their families are in a very good environment. So it's sure that the fact that we work with very well-known firms like Google or like MIT, but we have some celebrities that come here to live here. Well, those are very good prescriptors for us, and obviously it helps us in being better known. The case of Ferran is a very good case. He's very well known. He's come to live here in Andorra, and he brings with him his experience in the entrepreneurship, his contacts, his network. So it's a very good example.
He says that whenever he trains, it's better here because of the level of oxygen in the blood, and that's the main reason for him coming over. So I don't know if the rest of sportsmen have said so. I wanted to talk specifically about, before we go into the projects itself, because I want you to showcase some of these projects. I wanted to talk more. When you go and approach MIT and Google, I was in Silicon Valley because we have this the global conference of Startup Grind every year in February, right? And when I was mentioning, I'm so excited, I'm going to be opening a chapter in Andorra. And they were like, what's Andorra, right? That's the first question. And the second question is like, okay, how many people do live there? And you say, about 70,000, if I'm not mistaken. And they're like, but Google has got more employees than inhabitants in this country, right? So for them, it's really shocking that countries can be this size, right? How do you, whenever you're talking to them, how do you explain that you're in fact a country with this size and that you're able to regulate for all these size of population?
Yeah. Well, I've had the opportunity.
Have you had this experience as well?
Oh yes, I've had the opportunity and the honor to be the Foreign Affairs Minister for 6 years before being an economy side. So I know what it's like to go abroad and try to explain what Andorra is. But at the same time, we are kind of a historic coincidence, likely an accident. We are a very small country. We were born as a country in 1278, but the very unique thing is that we are born on the idea of a peace treaty. We had 2 princes in France, one in France, the Count of Foix, and the Bishop of Urgell in Spain, who fought for the property of the valleys of Andorra, and we were born as a principality because they decided to sign a peace treaty and to become co-princes, co-heads of state of Andorra. And this is, when I talk that we can be unique, this is, I think, the major factor of ourselves being unique. We have a unique birth in terms of institutions. We've been able to be modern. We have now a modern constitution with separation of powers. We are in the UN, we are United Nations, we are in the Council of Europe, we are negotiating with the EU, we are recognized internationally, but we have kept this co-head of state. So the president of France, who inherited the title from the King of France, is still our co-head of state, and the Bishop of Urgell from the Spanish side is the other co-head of state. So this has enabled us to exist during 7 centuries. If we hadn't had this institutional framework, we would be probably French or Spanish. This story, this history makes us unique, and it's the proof, it's the evidence that we can be modern, but still keeping to our roots. And I think that this balance is what makes us sympathetic when we explain it to my colleagues. And I think that this is very much what we are trying to base our message. You can find here something unique. You can find it something unique for a touristic experience, in winter in the ski resorts, in summer in trekking, in shopping, because we are a very sophisticated shopping center here. We are unique in terms of opportunities of business. We are unique in terms of culture and history. So that's why we try to cultivate this image of we would like to compete worldwide. It's difficult, and we can only do it by this kind of unique feeling that you can transmit.
All these innovations have really shocked me. To be honest, before this year, I hadn't come to Andorra for 12 years, something like that. So when I came here, there's Wi-Fi everywhere, there's a co-working space in Caldea, there's this MIT lab partnership and all of that. So I'm positively surprised, and it seems like you're rapidly adapting to a changing environment precisely because you want to be also competitive in business. Can we drill down and describe one or two projects, kind of Cityscope or this electric bicycle that you've got, to give a more tangible example to our audience about what you're specifically doing and testing with the MIT lab?
Yeah, in fact, the first big issue was being more competitive in the touristic sector.
Definitely.
And so the idea was to be able to understand the patterns of behavior of our visitors. So we have collected all the data from the Andorra Telecom company, from the energy company, also some data which is government owned, like data on environmental issues, noise, pollution, etc. And we have just built kind of a map of our Central Valley, of our country, in fact, and we are able to project now different layers of information, of database on this. So we can now show the mobility of our visitors, how they behave in terms of nationality. We can differentiate Andorran, French, and Spanish guys or other nationalities. So we can understand how they move around in our territory. So that gives us the sense of what they like better or not. We are now including trying to upgrade this capacity in terms of having information about their spending. That would be a huge upgrade in terms of ability to know about their behaviors. So this has shown us that there is a very direct link between loyalty policies, because if we know how they behave, if we detect what is interesting for them, how we can design urban spaces that are more favorable in terms of constructing loyalty, repeating experiences of our visitors. If we are able to do that, that connects three worlds. Transactionality, we make to have a seamless way of paying in everywhere, in shops, in restaurants, in the buses, in the different ways of transport. Mobility, because when people come here, they come mainly by car today. So we have to make them easy to find the parking lots, to then take other ways of transport. So we have started a mobility platform with the energy company, which has opened a new business line based on being a provider of mobility as a service, which I think is very innovative. And obviously the part of tourism. How do we identify what people like when they come here? How can I upgrade and promote this experience? This is what it's all about. So the Cityscope is a map where we can put different layers of information. We are now working in a project which is to connect events. When we started in 2011, we doubled the budget of tourism, and we invested all the new money in creating events during the whole year. Okay, so it can be, we have a show with the Cirque du Soleil, which can only be seen in Andorra, for example, in summer. We have invested a lot of money in infrastructures for having now the World Cups in skiing. Next year, we're going to have the World Ski Finals here. So there is a lot in biking events. We had the Tour de France last year. The Vuelta de España is coming nearly once 2 years. So we have a lot of resources invested in promoting touristic events here, and we want to connect the events. Everything is connected now, and the Internet of Things, etc. So we thought, why don't we connect the event? Why are not we able to measure not only how much people come to the event, but what is the profile of the event? If they come to this event, do they come again next year? Do they come during the year? Is that event an event that provides loyalty, or is it an event that brings people that never came here? And so we are working now on a project with the MIT in trying to be able to recognize, to build the profiles of the touristic events, and then be able to better allocate the resources as a public entity. We invest a lot of money on that, so if I can decide better if I want to invest in an event that brings people more times to Andorra, or if I want to favor an event that brings people that never came before. So this is very important. Getting information is key to everything, and we are very much excited in trying to experiment this kind of initiatives with the MIT Media Lab now, but also with private partners. I'm sure that many private firms would be maybe interested in testing this kind of ideas in an environment like ours.
This project we were speaking about, in what stage is it right now? And are, for instance, local small shop owners are already profiting from this data, or only the top tier partners for now?
Right now, we have been working a lot in having the data, which is correct. You have to imagine that we take the information from the antennas of the telecom company.
Definitely.
So we had to build algorithms in terms of simulating the movements from one antenna to the other. So there has been a lot of work to be done in the quality of the data. Obviously, always also in the compliance of the data. All the data that has been worked is being worked according to EU directives, so in anonymous data.
I was going to ask about privacy issues.
That's very important, because that makes you credible in the end. Okay, so we've been working a lot on that. So today we can have the movements of the people who come here brought by the signal that is sent to the antennas of their mobile phones, and we are able to map it on the whole territory. What we want to do now is to work with private sectors or researchers or academicians in trying to bring them in an open innovation way all together around that table, around that map, and to say, you as retailers, what is interesting for you in knowing how people move or how people spend? You hotels or restaurants or
exactly.
whatever.
How are they going to be
what
given
is
this
important
data?
for you? We work today with the Automobile Club, which is working on lowering the rate of accidents. We are aiming to work with them in trying to lower it, because there is probably a correlation between where the accident happens, the environmental causes, rain, snow, temperature, etc. So we can probably correlate information that we have in order to prevent accidents. So right now the idea is we have collected the data. We are going to be able to look at very precise days. We want by the end of the year to be able to look in real time at what is happening. And now what we have to do is to gather the stakeholders from the private sector. We already had some retail sector which are interested in censoring their shops and being able to know how people move in their environment, but also in their shops. We have built initiatives with research teams. For example, we have developed an initiative with the OPSA, which is the Andorran Observatory Research Team. We are, as a country, very much committed with energetic transition, because obviously we have a very important natural environment and we have to preserve it. And we are moving forward in having more renewable sources of energy. And for example, with the OPSA, we have calculated all the potential of power supply that the roofs of all the houses in Andorra can produce. So we have mapped with the OPSA the whole private capacity of production of solar power supply. And for every roof of every building, people can know how much power they can use, how much money is it going to cost them to invest in the modules, and how much time they're going to make the break even, etc., etc. And these are tools, and it all arises from gathering together data. And so right now, what we want to start is to gather around this mapping facility all the sectors and try to build applications which are obviously of interest of each one of them.
Linking you mentioned this very briefly before, but now you were mentioning the environmental sustainability, which is really important in such an environment, right? But we mentioned before that when we're talking about smart cities, we oftentimes do not cover the rural areas, right? And by being a small country in this small ecosystem, you need to be accountable to all the stakeholders. How do you align them, and what specific actions have been done to give a profit to benefit the rural areas specifically? Is there something that you have already done to empower them in terms of more technology, more safety, more sustainability in very, very remote areas of Andorra?
Yeah, most of the problems from rural areas come from the lack of infrastructure. And this particular factor, the fact that we have the energy company, which is state-owned, has always had the dimension of public service. And so all the areas, all the rural areas have access to very good infrastructures in terms of power supply, but also through Andorra Telecom, which is a telecom company, to connectivity. You have to know that 100% of the households are connected to high-speed rate. They are all at 300 gigabytes per second. All the big corporates are at 1 gigabyte already. So really, we have made a big effort in terms of investment in infrastructure, in connectivity, to get the rural also places. Bringing innovation in the rural places is something that is already happening. We have seen some initiatives in terms of drones and everything, taking care of cattle and everything. We are now trying to see this kind of initiatives to maybe get some inspiration. But the biggest effort that we've done right now to get rural areas to be in equality of possibilities of developing businesses is by getting connectivity to them. And in this particular item, we have a very, very good positioning in terms of infrastructure.
I have to say that, like I mentioned before, I'm very impressed with the progress that has been made so far. And I come from a country where, when there's a change in politics and the party in power, the other power that comes into office, they undo everything that has made before. So I wanted to ask, how aligned are you with the opposition in terms of continuing this project? Because this is a long-term investment. You obviously cannot undo a partnership with the MIT lab or some of these great investments that you have been doing in terms of, the smart cities, like changing the pavement, putting sensors everywhere, relocating all the data and gathering it and giving it to make reality all these kind of big projects. Do you see the continuity for this project?
Yeah, I think that the key for this to happen is not only to involve other parties, but also to involve the private sector and the institutions, the Chamber of Commerce, the Confederation of Entrepreneurs, etc. And even the schools community, the academicians. We have developed, for example, a project with the MIT Media Lab. They have some kind of sensors, which they call the termites, which are able to censor everything related to climate, temperature, humidity, etc. So we have built a project in the Andorran school, which the students make the efficiency programming of their own school by developing in the whole year all the organization of the censoring, the gathering the data, studying the data, and so this kind of experiences we have had some undergraduates from the MIT that came to the Andorran schools last year and spent a week with them So the idea of putting in contact society directly with the initiative is very important. So we have always had the idea to link a lot of initiatives to this MIT adventure. For example, we have developed some financing for projects linked to innovation for students that are now graduating abroad, and as part of the consensus that we want to build on this competitiveness bet that we have to take, we have also tried to include other parties, people in the structures that have been developing. For example, the chairman of the education cluster that we launched is a member of the opposition in the parliament. We have tried people care about entrepreneurship, whatever their party can be.
Exactly.
So I think that we should be able, and that is something that we should be able more in a small country. We should be able to overcome differences in some items which are normal, and to find the big strategic bets to be done together. As far as the program is concerned, to now in the last 3 years, I think that we have had a good understanding. Myself with the legislative commission of economy, I've been explaining to them the new challenges that we want to undertake, and particularly in the loyalty, mobility, and transactionality issues. Very recently, they were all very cooperative, and I have to admit, and always there is something to criticize always, and it's good that people criticize you, because otherwise you live in a bubble. But I'm sure that this is one unique thing that maybe we could build in Andorra that is more difficult to do in larger countries. To be able to overcome political differences and make the bet to bet for the country, because if the country doesn't work, it doesn't work for anybody. Nevertheless, the party.
Definitely. I don't claim to have the solution to all your problems in the country, but if there's something that we really want to emphasize at Startup Grind, one of our values is always help first. So definitely, I wanted to ask you on stage is how can we help Andorra and the Andorran ecosystem?
Well, you're already helping us. In fact, for me, this interview is already an opportunity.
We can do one every week if you want, but
well, I don't know. I don't know if you're going to gain much audience by inviting me every week, but no. The fact is, no. The fact is that our story is to find partners that position us in the world, and both for having visibility to what we are doing, but also to attract initiatives here. And in this respect, obviously, Startup Grind is for us a great opportunity, a window to the world to let Andorra better known. We know how difficult it is because we are far from the radar of big companies and big states, but I think that we are a unique destination where things can happen. We can make them happen perhaps easier, and for us, being in the linked to the Startup Grind community is very important. Most of all because we understand that we have to give the opportunity to entrepreneurship here in Andorra to be more connected. When you're so small, you don't have all the elements of that you need to grow entrepreneurship. But we are close to cities like Toulouse, Barcelona, Montpellier, which are very, very vital, Madrid, which are very active. So we have known by 7 centuries that we are better when we are more connected to our neighbors. And now neighbors have grown exponentially in terms of capacity by the connectivity. And this Startup Grind initiative for us is a very, very, very good opportunity to be more visible, to attract talent here, to attract initiatives, and as Ferran has mentioned, the opportunity also welcoming here in Andorra some well-known persons from the community will be very important also, because that's something that I have learned by being the Foreign Affairs Minister, is that when we invite people to know about Andorra, normally that works well.
All right. 3 very, very fast questions, very quick questions, because I want the audience to
I'll try to be quick answers. Also.
Very, very fast. I'm going to be helping you with that. The first one is, you seem to have a great relationship with Google, and oftentimes when you fire up the GPS and you say, I want to go to Andorra, it brings you to Zaragoza because there's a small town there. How many people have you tracked that go there? And is this something you're talking about with Google? You know this is a known issue?
I never heard of that, but I will take
There's a small town in Zaragoza, it's called Andorra, and sometimes it's...
Well, we have one...
I've had a friend go there accidentally, so...
We have one guy from Google, which is working in Zurich in the board of the agency that is caring about foreign direct investment.
Yeah.
So I will take care to transmit this request. Now, as I mentioned to you, for us it's important to be in relationship with firms that are connected globally. This is why we've been interested in working with Google. Why are they interested in working with us? It's because well, we can make things happen here. So we may not be good at everything, but there is something that we have, this the ability to align interest and stakeholders, which works very well. And I think that we have all the chances to repeat this kind of experiences with the MIT Media Lab in other circumstances like the Cirque du Soleil. We've done things that are innovative. We want to do more things like that. All of them will not work. We know that we're going to fail, but you only fail by giving up trying. And the opportunities of networking that Startup Grind can give us in this respect are very interesting for us.
Perfect. The second one is everybody has got a superpower, which is yours. What's your superpower? Something you do exceptionally well. I'm famous for that.
I'm afraid that I'm a very normal guy, so
that's not a superpower.
I'm afraid that I don't have a superpower. I would like initiatives to survive my term. I don't know if this is living forever, immortality.
Immortality.
But it's kind of a way of immortality that would be interesting. How can we make important things to happen once you're not there to promote from the government?
All right, then you probably will like the next question and the last question, which is everybody has got a useless superpower. Something you do exceptionally well, but it's useless. You cannot use it anywhere. It just doesn't help you in work or anything. What's yours?
I talk too much.
The first fast answer should have been slightly shorter, but something like, I lock the car, I walk 50 meters away, and it's like, did I lock the car or not? And walk back and check it? That's a useless superpower. What's yours?
Well, I think that, no, probably I don't know if it's a useless superpower, but I have a big default, which is to be convinced of what I'm doing. So being passionate of things that I do, I don't know if it's a superpower, but sometimes it tends to lead me to be useless.
That's perfect. Well, before we go into the questions, please give it up a really big applause for Minister Gilbert Saboya. I've got something to ask you. I've been told people in Andorra are shy. You guys don't like to make questions. So there's a challenge. Who wants to make the first question? Otherwise, I'm going to keep asking. Is there anybody in the room who wants to pose a question? Yes, we've got a man. Say your name. Stand up, please. And
Gregory Conan, resident since about 10 years. Minister, what are the priorities you have for the coming 2-3 years? What do you have in store for us?
Good question.
Yeah. Well, I think that, speaking globally as a government, I think that the top priority should be to create the conditions, the definitive conditions for Andorra to be able to compete globally. And I do think that the main challenge today and the main priority should be to finalize the negotiations with the EU in terms of getting an association agreement in good terms. I think that is key, because I do think that the world is not tending to, for small countries like ours, to be able to elaborate regulations quickly that respond to the challenges that the real world is creating, and to do it in a way that people accept them. So the label of recognition of your regulations. And I think that a small country has all its opportunity to leverage its assets if it lives in community with the environment. And that has very much to do with the association agreement that we're living with the EU. This is a global, probably, goal for the government. And not only this government, any government that will come after us. And we get to term probably by the end of the year or beginning of next year. In terms of the Ministry of Economy, which I'm leading now, our priority is to start building an ecosystem based on three main objectives. Loyalty, to give tools to the Andorran economic sectors to be more competitive in assuring loyalty of their clients. Mobility, because it's very linked. We have to be a place where mobility is a competitive edge. I think that we have the means to do it. And then transactionality. Everything has to be smooth. We live of 8 million people who visit us. We have either to have more people visiting us more often or spending more when they come. This is very important. And I think that particularly that if we achieve to have innovation being the competitive edge, not only will we reinforce the competitiveness of the existing sector, but we can make new sectors appear. The sector that helps to be innovative. And I do think that is a priority, at least for the next months in which we are going to be minister.
Thank you.
I have a follow-up. Just you were talking about how important it is to be innovative, and it's true some of the classical sectors here are under pressure, like banking and commerce. You mentioned, Alex, other countries are doing very well with, say, blockchain or whatever.
I was going to ask that, but yeah, go ahead.
There's some segments of the economy that Andorra would have an opportunity because it is small and reactive, like blockchain, like maybe biotech even. Are these areas that you are looking at? You have a task force. Is this something that you think might be important to decrease the dependence on banking and commerce? Thanks.
Great, thank you.
Yeah. I think that the retail sector that you refer to is under pressure, not only here but globally. The competition between the physical retail and the digital retail. Now everything is talking about the phygital retail. How do we marry the physical retail to the digital ones? I think that in this perspective, we have a very good chance. One of the initiatives that we're leading now is to build a marketplace app where our visitors can find everything that Andorra has to offer to them. Kind of a Visit Andorra app. This is more than an app because you need an ecosystem and an environment and a platform to support that. But for the user, it's going to be an app where he can find everything happening in Andorra when he's here, but also everything that he can do in Andorra when he's not here, which is very interesting for us. So I think that is one initiative that we are going to launch in the following months, where we try to involve, for example, the Chamber of Commerce. We've been in talks with the new chairman because we think that the results can only come by aligning the stakeholders. And so I think the retail sector has everything to win in accessing to their clients when they are here, because if you promote a kind of an engine, a contextual engine that is based on their preferences, etc., that's what people like. People are eager to give their information if they receive good services in return, if it adds value. And I do think that if we have an application that you have all the information that you can find of Andorra, where you can park your car, how do you get to the museum, how do you make the reservation in the hotels, and everything integrated in a single app, this is what Andorra can do in a unique way. Because this is very hard to be done in a larger city. And this can be something different in terms of competing for being a touristic destination. So that can be an example of what can be done. In terms of blockchain, I do think that blockchain by structure, by the way it's born, is a very good tool for everything related to e-administration issues. And probably there is a good chance for us to develop the service to the citizens in the e-administration side by using blockchain, because well it enables, it embeds security and it embeds the tracking of the changes. So by structure, I think it's very much adapted to everything that is related to smart contract and this kind of thing. So for the administration, I think that that's a technology that should be used. We have had some contacts in this respect to do some pilot to be used in the administration with the citizens.
I think we'll have to interview you again because it seems you have a lot of things to talk about blockchain. So we're going to wrap this up. Thank you very much for coming. There's some drinks outside. This is something that we want to be very thankful for. This is the first edition. It's very special. So thank you, everyone. Thanks to sponsors. Thank the Centre de Congressos d'Andorra. Thank you, Gilbert. And thank you, everyone, for coming. Please, big applause for him. Thank you. And we'll go outside. Thank you very much.